Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh is brought to you by
Mary Freebed, Collectible Insurance Services, West Michigan Eye Care Associates, Eric Hall Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Calder Financial, Grand Management Group, Encore Business Group, and Rydan Investments.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh.
Stay informed and stay vigilant. Happy to bring on Alex Urban of the Eat 'em Up podcast. I've been listening to this podcast more. I really like it. They give a lot of great information. It's also fun. It's kind of the dichotomy we look for here. And in that dichotomy, Alex, I think I was remiss to not ask the last guest this, but we've been celebrating National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. So I'm curious if you have a favorite cookie on the way in here.
Ryan, great to talk with you. Appreciate the opportunity. And, classic chocolate chip, what's better than that? I used to work at a candy store, so I had my fair share of cookies in my time, but chocolate chip reigns supreme.
I like it. Yeah, that's a classic answer. I'm sure I hear there's congratulations in order, so I'm sure you're having some snacks here. You've got two new ones that just joined the family, right?
Yeah. My wife, she did a phenomenal job. We have twins now, about 2 weeks old. Very blessed. We're a family of 5. I got a 3.5-year-old. So just put him to bed. Just gave a bottle to my little girl while we're watching the game here tonight. But incredibly blessed family. So I appreciate the kind words.
Well, congratulations. We're happy for you. And to listeners of the show, they know I typically go 30 minutes with the interviews. I agreed to only do 15 with Alex because we got to give him a break. We got to get him some rest here. So we'll do 15 to 20 minutes. So we'll be quick with him here so he can get some rest. But there's a lot to talk about. I really enjoyed your guys' segment, your podcast on the trade deadline. And I guess the first question I have for you, because I heard, we'll review what you said for the listeners that didn't listen to that podcast, but I'm curious if your opinion has changed because you guys gave it grades, and has the grade, what was the grade for those that are uninitiated, and has the grade changed at all with a few more days of thought here?
Yeah, and I'll be, completely candid. I was fired up. It was a lot of raw emotion. I gave it a D grade overall, D as in David, because I didn't think that Scott Harris did enough. I think Scott Harris has been a tremendous general manager in his time here. He has reshaped the organization, really turned the organization around, both in the way that he has drafted and brought in the right people up and down the organization for development. There's more development that is happening in this organization, and even at the major league level, that's ever happened before. But in my mind, you had a team that was the first place in Major League Baseball for the entirety of the season, and they didn't add enough pieces to really go for it, in my mind. They showed a little bit of weaknesses in that down spell, and I think the bullpen everybody can identify as kind of the weak chain on this team. So I really wanted them to go what I felt was their biggest need in the swing and miss reliever, and I didn't think that the guys that they brought in were enough, frankly. All of that said, I didn't want them to part with any of the top 5 prospects, McGonigal, Clark, Briseño, Lorenzo, any of those guys, but I do think they could have got more done with the Max Andersons of the world, the Hao-Yu Lees of the world. But my emotions have kind of cooled off since that episode. I'm willing to certainly give it a chance. Scott Harris has brought guys in here in the past who have succeeded that nobody really saw coming. I mean, Zach McKinstry, I'm a CMU guy. I'm wearing his jersey right now. And everybody got to poo-poo that trade. But I'm going to give it an incomplete. If push comes to shove, I still think I would have liked to see him do more. But Finnegan looked really good. Charlie Morton looked spectacular. Then Paddock in his first start, and he's going again tomorrow against his old club. He looked really good as well. But, all in all, I would have liked to see them do more. But, I'm eating a little bit of crow here early, albeit, first couple games.
I was kind of in the other camp. That's why I wanted to bring that up. I can totally see your perspective on it. And I think a lot of fans felt that way. I think a lot of fans wanted them to go for it. This has been a conservative team as far as player acquisition has gone as compared to the previous era that most of us remember. When Dombrowski was in charge, obviously they just played the Phillies. They made some big acquisitions at the deadline. That is a classic Dombrowski team and set of moves. Scott Harris is a little bit more conservative, and the spending is more conservative. They're going to have to spend on some of the internal players if they want to retain them. That's kind of the mindset I had. I'm a young core guy. I like building the young core and the culture, and then kind of layering in the veterans in all of the teams because we talk about all 4 sports here, and so that was kind of where my head was at. But I could see kind of where some of these players could fit in as far as slotting goes, because Morton's an interesting one. You brought him up. His numbers overall for the year weren't great, but his recent splits were good. And you guys made an interesting point on the podcast that I wanted to bring up, because I think a lot of people here in Michigan are saying, hey, why can't we get Justin Verlander back? He's one of the better Detroit arms of all time, and that was another guy that was united with Hinch. But the fact that Hinch didn't really seem to have a lot of interest in him and had more interest in Morton, I think getting that veteran presence that will fit in and not upset the culture was kind of the tiebreaker in that case. Is that the feel you guys got?
Yeah, and of course that's speculation, but I'm glad you brought that up, because AJ Hinch has managed both of these guys. He's seen both of these guys up close and personal. Very different personalities, very different types of pitchers. They've been in the league, a similar amount of time. I think they and Max Scherzer, funny enough, are two of the oldest pitchers in the game. But Justin Verlander is known, throughout the industry, obviously, as being one of the best pitchers of all time, but also having kind of a prickly personality. Even in the heyday here in Detroit, there were some rumors that there was quite a bit of ego. You hear on the national broadcast that the reporters couldn't walk up to him on the day of a start. He wouldn't even address them. And then Charlie Morton's a little bit more of an understated guy personally. So I think, this team is built on culture. I appreciate you guys cover all the teams here. I think I look at it a little bit like how the Lions have brought in such great culture guys. They look for team captains, guys with a ton of character that just play for each other rather than ego. And that's how this Tigers team was constructed as well. So I think maybe the fear of bringing in a Verlander type personality was that it was going to upset the apple cart. He doesn't have the best numbers on the season. I do think maybe his career could have got a little rejuvenated coming home and having the opportunity to win a ring with the Tigers, which he wasn't able to do. But I trust Chris Fetter. I trust AJ Hinch. And ultimately, despite what I said on the show this week, I trust Scott Harris. And Charlie Morton, he's got some great numbers, as you mentioned, over his last 10, 11 starts. So it's been fun to watch. I mean, he's kind of beating Father Time here, but I do think that's a great addition for the sole fact that this team was missing a little bit of an elder statesman on the staff. When they were going through that slump, there wasn't really a veteran presence that stood up. There was no closed clubhouse meeting. There was no players-only meeting. So maybe having a guy that has a ring, has been through the league before, has seen it all, could really be a boon for these young guys and kind of level them out as they're going to make their way to the playoffs here.
He does seem to have the personality for that. And speaking of elder statesmen, this wasn't a trade acquisition, obviously, but I'm curious about your thoughts, because I feel like in most of the interviews I've done about the Tigers, we talk about them pretty much every week here, that there's a name on this team that really doesn't get brought up at all, and it's Alex Cobb, who's been here in our neck of the woods in West Michigan here for a couple starts. But I'm curious if we have any hope that he's going to be able to join and fill a role later in the year. I know that's predicting health things, and that's tough to do, but he's a guy that could kind of fill a similar role with the depth if you can add him in and potentially fill a spot there, as he kind of did last year in the playoffs here.
Yeah, I would be shocked if you don't see him at some point, to be honest with you. I think the relievers that they brought in at the trade deadline kind of showed me that they're going to do a lot of mixing and matching down the stretch. They're going to see what sticks and what doesn't. They're going to give guys opportunities to come up and do some different things. I mean, Troy Melton is already slotted into the bullpen. He got his start, not revoked, but his role definitely got changed with the acquisitions that they made. But I think Lang is an interesting piece. The thing with him is, when he's on, but when he's off, he's borderline unplayable. He's got that swing and miss opportunity. He was the closer for this team a couple years ago. But when he can't throw strikes, nobody, even himself included, know where the ball is going. So that's something that I know that they're trying to iron out with him. He would be a major piece if they could get him back on track. But the thing with him also, if you can remember last year before the injury, is he had a little bit of a blow up on the mound. And this front office, this organization, they don't like to stand for that too much. They like a lot of composure. They like a lot of team chemistry. And when guys kind of go off like that, that's a little bit of a black eye in the player. But I'm really intrigued on if they can kind of straighten him out at all. I would love to see him come up here. I mean, the more guys that can miss bats in the bullpen, that's exactly what they need right now. There's such a well-rounded team otherwise, Ryan. But, I think, Alex Lang, sometime in between August and mid-September, I think you're going to see him up with the big club again.
I'm curious who you wanted, because I know you said that you wanted them to be more aggressive. Who were the guys that you were targeting as far as the relievers. We obviously know there was a lot of big names, especially on the relief side. That seemed to be the bulk of the names. There weren't a lot of starting pitchers that were moved. It was more relievers. But who would have been your ideal guy to go after? Obviously, you got to determine value and who you're going to give up from the minor leagues. But regardless of value, were there a couple of guys that you had your eye on?
Yeah, Hensley, whatever his name is, the closer from St. Louis. I knew they were linked to him. I thought that would have been a good tweet. Bednar from the Pirates, although, the rumors came out that they were asking for Jose Briseño, and I would not do that as a 1-1 swap, and obviously very pleased that they turned that one down. But I think Evan Petzold, the beat writer for Free Press, did a really interesting article about all the relievers that got moved to the deadline for non-top 100 prospects, and that list was pretty long. I know Scott Harris really likes his team, but something that we talked about on the podcast this week is a little bit of redundancy in the minor leagues. You've got, Max Anderson, Hao Yu Lee, and a glut of other, middle infield prospects that you're not going to ever be able to play them all. So I thought there was a little bit of a glut of talent that they could have done that way to get some of those guys in here. Bird, that went to the Yankees, is another one I know that the Yankees bullpen blew up the other night, which was kind of ironic. Another name that actually didn't get moved was Seth Halverson of the Colorado Rockies. He's a flamethrower out of their bullpen. That was a guy that I was kind of thumping the bat for a while now. And then, if you could try to pluck Duran from the Minnesota Twins, who we just saw in Philadelphia the other day, that was a guy that you might be able to twist my arm and give up one of those top guys just because he has so much control left and he's such an elite closer in the game. But those are a few of the names that I got. I loved the Finnegan pick. I think out of anybody that they brought in, that was my favorite. And again, I think it was just, for me, the raw emotion of feeling like they didn't capitalize on, strike when the iron's hot. And then I was able to kind of cool off and say, okay, what are they seeing with these guys? Scott Harris used the quote of they like what's going on under the hood and the metrics aren't really showing it. So let's let this breathe a little bit. Let's see what these guys can do. We haven't seen Montero yet. He's kind of the biggest question mark of it all, but you didn't get up anything to get him. And let's not forget, you still got Bo Brisky. Hopefully he's going to come back from injury at Toledo and get right. As you mentioned, Alex Lang and a couple other internal options could come up here shortly. So those are a few of the names that I was targeting that I was a little disappointed they didn't bring in. But, all of that to say the sky is not falling. This is still a great ball club, and I think they're still going to make a deep push in the playoffs regardless.
I agree. And it seems like at least the depth was kind of right-sized a little bit. I get what you're saying with not bringing in some of those top-end guys, and these are guys that are going to maybe layer in a little bit more in the bullpen or at the back end of the rotation. But I still think that's going to help a lot, because if there's so much nuance to baseball, and you know it a lot better than I do, but there's a lot of different things going on. You've got guys that have nagging injuries that are prodding on, and you've got a lot of things, little things going on that add up by the end of the season. But I do think that the usage has been a little high, and maybe not putting people in maybe putting them in too many situations up until this point, especially in the bullpen. So I like that they have more options. Like you said, they've got some injury returns here that are potentially happening. And although they're maybe not some of the big names that you mentioned, there's guys that are going to be able to slot other guys down, like Finnegan, moving other existing arms down so he can take a little bit of the heat off of some of these other arms, especially as hopefully they don't have to go with the whole pitching chaos, but we do know that he's going to be shuffling those arms around and trying to take advantage of the situation, especially as it becomes crunch time and playoff time here.
Yeah, I think that's a tremendous point. I mean, you look at a pitcher like Tommy Kahnle, he has already thrown this season as many pitches as he's thrown in the last two, respectively. You got Will Vest. He's taking on a different role that he's never had before. You got some rookies on this team like Chase Lee, who's down in Toledo right now. But, between the pitching chaos and the guys that they had last year and some of the guys that they brought in this year, there's an extremely high amount of usage on these arms. There's a lot of mileage on these arms. So I think some of these guys might just be a little bit gassed. For the folks that, were pleased with the deadline, I can certainly understand it from that point. Scott Harris went for a quantity over, what a lot of people would say is quality standpoint. But, just bringing in some fresh arms, as you mentioned, kind of slotting different guys around, giving some guys some breath, and having the ability to go to different guys so you're not having to have one of your relievers throw 2 innings at a time. So I think that's going to be a boon for them. Ultimately, you know, we're all going to see it in the playoffs. Pitching is going to carry you in the playoffs, and pitching wins championships. So I think that's why I was kind of fired up. I wasn't as upset that they didn't bring in a bat. I was banging the drum for Suarez, but, you know, it is what it is with that. And they're still hitting out runs, you know, on a nightly basis for the most part. But, yeah, I think overall more arms that they can kind of mix and match and rely on is going to take the pressure off of Will Vest, for example.
Yeah, Vest and Canely, you hit that name too. That was one of the main names that I was thinking about, because even Holton, I can see that a little. He's pitched a lot of innings for a guy in his role over the last couple years, and then up till this year, he seems to be leveling out pretty well. But that's just a lot of pressure, both on his arm and just on them as a whole. So if you can spread out that pressure and kind of ride the hotter hand, that's something they haven't really had the opportunity to do, because if Canely's not really working, you didn't have a ton of other options before they brought these guys in, because some of the other guys were scuffling or down. And so it was like, well, we got to get Canely right, otherwise we're in trouble. Now they have a few more options to mix in there.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. And honestly, this kind of a bullpen, if you're going to have it and you're going to have a team that's looking to make a deep run, AJ Hinch is the exact kind of manager that you want for this kind of a staff. He doesn't have a dedicated closer. I know he's gone to Will Vest more often than not this year, but he is going to put his best pitchers in the biggest spots at any time. So, you know, you could see any number of these guys in the bullpen closing games just because of the matchup, rather than him being an old school manager and saying, oh, okay, this is Jose Valverde. He gets the ball in the ninth no matter what, right? So, you know, he's the kind of guy who's going to maximize his staff for sure. And then you have the best pitching coach in baseball, in my opinion, in Chris Fetter, that can try to get these guys right. I mean, Rafael Montero, he is as big a project as you're going to find in the league. He could easily be DFA'd in 2 weeks just as well as he could be brought on this playoff roster. But, you know, they also have the ability to have Troy Melton come out of the pen and just let it fly after, bumping him out of the rotation. So I think there's some different options. There's a lot of diversity in the pen that they didn't have before. And as you just mentioned, you know, give these guys a little bit of a breath, take some of the innings off of some of the existing arms that they've had, and let the chips fall where they may.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh.